The NFL trade deadline is right around the corner, so today we're taking a look at some of the top players in the league that are going to be on new teams in just a couple of weeks. And we're starting off with Chris Olave of the New Orleans Saints. He's been getting a lot of buzz to potentially be traded by the trade deadline. And Olave is a really interesting player because at one point in time, he was viewed as one of the best up-and-coming receivers in the entire league. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons to begin his career, but has since then dealt with a ton of injuries, especially head injuries, which is not super ideal. He only played in 8 games in 2024. So far this season, he has played every single game. But anytime a player suffers multiple concussions, they are a bigger risk to suffer them in the future. So I do think that diminishes the value the Saints could get for Olave. But seemingly there are a lot of teams sniffing around for some wide receiver help. So maybe that does help increase his value on the trade market. Some teams flirting with the receiver trade are the New England Patriots, the New York Giants, and the Denver Broncos. For New England and the Giants, it's all about surrounding their young quarterback with another weapon. And again, if Olave is healthy on the field, he's a really exciting player and can be a huge piece to an offense. He is on the 4th year of his rookie scale contract, and the Saints already exercised his 5th-year option, so he is going to need another contract fairly soon, which could again lower his value. But with the Saints being one of the worst teams in the league again this season, likely going to be picking very high in the draft, I get the idea of wanting to trade one of the only players on your roster that has some good value, and Olave will probably be finding himself on a new team in just a couple of weeks. My second big trade candidate is De'Von Achane of the Miami Dolphins. He's emerged as one of the most electrifying running backs in the entire league, especially in the receiving game as well. The Dolphins have really utilized him as a workhorse the past couple of years, and he's really shown out, especially on the stat sheet. So why would the Dolphins entertain trades for really the only bright spot on their team this year? Well, think about it from a logical sense in team building. The Dolphins are likely not going to be good until 2027 or 2028 as they enter a new rebuild. Achane is also entering the last year of his contract, which means the Dolphins will also have to pay him a pretty big contract. What sense does it make for a rebuilding team to pay a large contract to a running back, especially one of the smallest running backs in the league in Achane, who is 5'9"? He's been utilized a lot the past couple of years. I just don't know if Achane is going to be as good or healthy by the time the Dolphins are good again. Why not trade him while his value is the highest, get some good draft capital back, and really jumpstart this new rebuild? Finding trade partners for a running back is always a little bit harder since teams are more reluctant to pay a large contract and give up a lot of value for one. But how fun would it be if Achane was the new weapon for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs? I'm just saying. I do also want to mention 2 other players the Miami Dolphins could potentially sell by the trade deadline, and it's 2 Jalens, Jalen Waddle and Jaelan Phillips. Keep your eyes open to potentially see these 2 guys move to the Dolphins, do get some good value in return. Phillips, when healthy, looks like one of the best young pass rushers in the league, but the problem with him is he's off an ACL injury, he's off an Achilles injury, he just continuously gets hurt, and he's also going to need a new contract soon since he's on his 5th-year option, so that does kind of complicate what the Dolphins could potentially get back for him. But Phillips is still pretty young at 26 years old and has 20 total pressures this season, which is also good for 26 in the NFL. So while he doesn't quite have the sack numbers, he's definitely getting to the quarterback, and I do think a contending team could take a flyer on that upside. And Jalen Waddle may seem like a crazy name to name drop, but I did see a couple reports on Twitter that saying Waddle could potentially be moved for the right price. I'm telling you, the Dolphins are headed for a massive rebuild. If they do get some good value, like a 2nd or maybe 1st-round pick for Waddle, he's going to be traded by the deadline. He's already under contract, he's a very productive player, and there's so many teams across the league that are looking for a playmaker to get their team over the hump. Waddle has already proven to be one of the most explosive receivers in the NFL, and he can handle the burden of being a #1 option. And his contract is honestly not bad for the production he brings, so maybe we could see a huge blockbuster trade happen very soon. Now up to New Jersey, we have another running back in Breece Hall of the New York Jets. Hall is a guy that has been rumored to be traded for a decent bit now. He was talked about last deadline as a trade candidate. He was talked about this offseason as a trade candidate. And while nothing has materialized yet, I do think we are trending in this direction. He did post something on Instagram recently basically saying free number 20, which is basically him saying, get me out of New York, I'm tired of this. And honestly, I can't blame him, and I do think the Jets are going to free him. At one point in time, Breece looked like a future superstar running back, but then he suffered numerous injuries. The Jets offensive line has not been great, and really since some of the big moments he had as a rookie, his career has just continued to go down and down and down. I still think he's shown enough flashes to fetch back maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick. Similar to Achane, it might be hard to find a trade partner that's willing to match the value the Jets want for their former early 2nd round pick. But this Jets team is awful at 0-6. I don't see them winning many more games the rest of this season. I think if they had plans to extend Breece, they would have done it already, and I just think he's on his way out one way or another. Why not try and acquire more capital to help you in next year's draft to really, again, boost up this rebuild? Another pass rusher who's been mentioned a ton in the trade trade market the last year or so is Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals. A divorce has been brewing between Hendrickson and Cincinnati for a long time now, and I finally think it's going to happen at the deadline. The Bengals are going nowhere this season with Joe Burrow on the bench. I don't care what Joe Flacco can do. This team is not going to be making it close to the playoffs this year. They do not want to pay Hendrickson long term. If they wanted to, he would have already been paid. He's still one of the most productive pass rushers in football. He led the league in sacks this past year. He has 4 sacks to begin this season. And there's also a lot of teams that are still out there looking for a pass rusher. Teams like the Detroit Lions or San Francisco 49ers. With most of Hendrickson's money already being paid and being on a 1-year deal, I do think they could get back maybe a 4th or 3rd round pick to acquire his services for the remainder of the season. I just don't see the rationale for the Bengals to keep Hendrickson when they're not going to be a playoff team this year, and they're also not going to extend him on a big money contract after the season ends. The relationship between the two have already been tarnished. Why would you not just trade him at the deadline and get whatever you can back for him? He has been on the injury report with the hip injury, but it does not seem major. He's listed as day-to-day, so I don't think that will be a factor either. My best guess is a contending team like the Detroit Lions will make a move to acquire Hendrickson and have a nice duo with him and Aiden Hutchinson off the edge. Now, we have gotten a confirmed leak about another receiver in the NFL who plays in Las Vegas named Jakobi Meyers. He already requested a trade in the preseason, but the Raiders said, no, we're not going to be trading you. But Jeremy Fowler reported that teams I've spoken to believe the Raiders are open to trading for wide receiver Jakobi Meyers, but are not actively trying to move him. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of teams looking for receiver help, and Meyers has just been a very solid number 2 option in offenses. He had over 1,000 yards last season for the Raiders and is one of the more underrated players in the entire league. I think that same crew of the Patriots, Giants, and Broncos, and even the Buffalo Bills could inquire and try and get Meyers on their team. It just doesn't seem like he's a fit long-term in Las Vegas. He has 0 touchdowns this season. I just think it's best for both parties for a move to happen. Now, cornerback Riq Woolen of the Seattle Seahawks is another guy that's been rumored to potentially be finding a new home. He is such an interesting player because he's 6'4", 205 pounds, and has some really good speed to his game, but his consistency just really hasn't been there with Seattle. He's allowing a 113 passer rating so far this season. He missed this past Sunday's game with a concussion, and Mike McDonald has been asked if maybe he's going to be benched in the future. He is going to be owed a new contract soon, but it doesn't seem like Seattle is super high on Woolen anymore. But if a team is willing to give up a day 2 or early day 3 pick, I think Seattle would be inclined to move on from their former 5th round pick. And who knows, maybe in the right situation, Woolen can get back to what he did as a rookie with 6 interceptions and making the Pro Bowl. And the final player I'm going to mention in this video is Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. This has been a season from hell for the Ravens. They are 1-5 and have dealt with so many injuries all across their roster, including one to star quarterback Lamar Jackson. But this trade has more to do with the future of the team and not necessarily their slow start to this season. Mark Andrews is now over 30 years old and is being paid a pretty heavy contract. I personally think the best tight end on their roster has been Isaiah Likely for a good amount of time now. If a team views Mark Andrews as a missing piece to get their offense over the hump or maybe just be better in the red zone, I think Baltimore has shown that they are more than willing to move off of Andrews and just get back whatever they can. Andrews really hasn't been the vocal point of this Ravens offense since like 2022. He's beginning to have to kind of battle those washed allegations, but as a red zone target, I do think he can still provide some value. And with the Ravens struggling so far this season and not really needing his services, I just think it makes sense for the Ravens to move on, cut their losses, and get rid of a big contract on their books. So that is a quick rundown of all of my top trade candidates for this upcoming NFL trade deadline. Let me know in the comment section below, where do you think some of these players will end up, and do you have any more kind of hidden gems that you think could be traded in just a couple of weeks? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. But subscribe to the channel if you are new, as we are on the road to 10,000 subscribers. Drop a like in the video if you did enjoy it, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.